Joining me now from the United States capital, Washington, D.C., to discuss the Afghanistan situation is a member of the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce, Doug Brooks. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. It's a year to the day since the Taliban entered Kabul unchallenged and took control of Afghanistan, transforming the lives of millions of people. Do Afghans feel differently?
Yeah, it's been a really difficult year, not just for the Afghans in Afghanistan, but the many who have fled and have been trying to get to other countries, especially to the United States. It's been very trying.
Well, looking at parts of the Doha agreement negotiated in February 2020 between the U.S. and the Taliban was that if U.S. forces withdrew from the country, then the Taliban would not allow their old allies, Al Qaeda, to reestablish their presence in the country. Does the return of the Taliban has meant international terrorist groups are able to reestablish themselves in the country?
Well, the Taliban had a special relationship with Al Qaeda, and obviously that continued, even though they denied that at Doha and other places. That was really a one-off, I think. I don't know that the Taliban are supporting other terrorist groups, but clearly, the head of the Al Qaeda to be basically right in the middle of Kabul, in an area that a lot of Taliban leaders live. That was a clear sign that they're still very cozy with Al Qaeda. Does that mean that the Taliban will support other terrorist groups or that they won't? Well, we don't know yet. The Taliban, if there's one thing we've learned over the past year, is that there's no real single leader to the Taliban. There are many different leaders and committees and so on, and it's very hard to get a clear message on about anything.
Well, it's good to see people opening their hearts and homes to Ukrainian refugees as the Russia-Ukraine war, rages on. But was the same offered to refugees from Afghanistan, especially in the UK and the US?
In the U.S., sure. There's been, tens of thousands of Afghans have made it to the United States through various programs. They're being settled around the United States. With a 20-year history and a military relationship with Afghanistan, there's veterans organizations in the United States that have taken the lead in helping to resettle Afghan families. They're all over the United States now. There's a fairly effective program that when Afghan families come in, they are oriented. They're sent to various communities all over the United States that are welcoming them. The United States also happens to be having a labor shortage, so finding jobs for them has not been as difficult as might be expected. There's already an Afghan community in the United States that dates back to the Russian invasion in 1979. So there's family connections. There's a lot of will towards them. So yes, the Ukrainian refugees are welcome, but there's a lot more Afghans in the U.S. right now, and they are being welcomed.
Well, now let's look at the girls and their fate in Afghanistan since the Taliban took over. It's clear that hardline clerics are resisting letting girls return to secondary school or performing a sizable role in public life, despite the pledges made last year by their spokesman, Zabihullah Mujahid. Should the UK recognize the Taliban government, or the US also recognize the Taliban government and try to work with more moderate elements within it? Will this make things worse or better for Afghan women?
Well, again, the Taliban themselves view a lot of their decisions by consensus, and it only takes a few Taliban to object to something, say women and girls in higher education, and it won't happen because even if the majority of the Taliban are willing to allow women to continue education past the 6th grade, so it's been a disaster. And the Taliban themselves, every time they make one step forward, starting to work on some sort of improving the banking system or trying to fix the disastrous economy, every time they sort of move forward, they do something else that moves everything backwards, attacking the media, or especially this issue with not allowing women to go to school above the 6th grade. There's 6 or 9 provinces now where they actually do allow women to continue beyond the 6th grade, but that's about it. And despite the amount of pressure coming from the Arabic world and the Gulf states, as well as the West, the Taliban have reverse this decision to not allow women beyond the sixth grade schools. It's terrible.
Well, the international community is actually, very worried about the state of the fate of the girls, especially the young one among them, the ladies generally. Do you think if they are not allowed to go to school, it will not be out of place to have them to study online? Should that be adopted rather than, okay, if they're having issues with them going to 4 walls of the classroom, maybe they can study online? Do you think that's very feasible?
Yes, it is. And in fact, there are several programs that are allowing women to study online. But of course, that requires cell phones, it requires working infrastructure. It requires a lot of things. And, are the Taliban trying to prevent that? In many cases, they are. So, yes, that is an option and it's one way to go, but it can't replace schools, it can't replace colleges and universities and allowing women there. I mean, think about this. As bad as the economy was after the Taliban came in and all the foreign aid stopped, it's even worse when you take half your population and say you're not allowed to work anymore, including an amazing amount of expertise within the women of Afghanistan. Not to mention all the Afghans who fled, the brain drain that happened right after the Kabul fell. So it's really, really bad situation.
Well, since you've been a member of the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce, for a while now, you must have seen a lot of things. Probably the media closed its eye to, or probably people don't really discuss in the public space. What are these, challenges, or what are these concerns that you would like to share as we have this conversation? That you think if this thing is put on is bring to the table, they will be able to resolve all of the lingering crises within Afghanistan so that the country can be stabilized again?
The economy is in shambles. The currency is literally worn out. They don't have enough currency. It's being printed abroad, or has been printed abroad, but nobody's going to ship it in because of all the sanctions and the fact that the Taliban still don't allow women to go to school. So no country really wants to engage with the Taliban. And thus the economy, which was bad, just keeps getting worse and worse. We managed to get through last year with, although there was hunger and problems from drought and so on. But this next winter is going to be even more difficult. And again, the Taliban have no expertise, and there's problems if you're trying to get credit to ship in food or whatever for the private sector. That's a big problem. And again, everybody, all the big companies and the big banks are worried about the sanction system. Are they allowed to work with the Taliban to help get food in and relief in or not? Nobody really knows in some cases, and it's quite likely that the sanctions are going to get even worse because of things the Taliban have done. Al-Qaeda and the issue with the women in schools.
Well, apparently the problems of Afghanistan is far from over. Well, we'll see how things eventually pan out at the end of the day. A member of the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce, Doug Brooks, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.